Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat and welcome sa Real Talk, SONA ba tayo? Edukasyon at Demokrasya. This event po is part of the partnership between the Center for Liberalism and Democracy and the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom Philippines or FNF Philippines. And it is a project which we call the Freedom Spaces Initiative. So in the Freedom Spaces Initiative, we create a free marketplace of ideas by encouraging free expression and discourse, bridging divides while recognizing diversity of standpoints. So ngayon pong gabi, we will look at President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s last State of the Nation address, or SONA, which he delivered the other Monday, and zero in on his administration's plans for the education sector. So right now po, I'm Carrie Season, by the way. I'm the managing trustee of the Center for Liberalism and Democracy. And right now we are live on CLD's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. You may also follow our live tweets via at CLD Philippines. Please feel free to send your questions for today's discussion by posting them on the live stream's comment sections or by tweeting using the hashtag SONA 2023 and hashtag SONA Batayo. Okay? Before we proceed further, gusto po nating ipakilala ang ating indefatigable na chairperson ng Center for Liberalism and Democracy. Please welcome Mr. Jerry Bulatao. Sir Jerry.
Thank you, Carrie. Good evening, everyone. We've been doing this for several years now. This year, we decided to ask our president of the Liberal Party, Congressman Edsel Lagman, for a statement. His will be more general, focusing on the SONA of President Bongbong Marcos Jr. But we wanted to focus the discussion on education particularly because of what we feel is its crucial nature in our democracy. So focusing on education and democracy will be the session tonight. As Carrie mentioned, we're doing this in partnership with FNF. So as chair of CLD, I give the welcome, and Yanyan Aranya of FNF will give the closing remarks. In the meantime, we will have three very interesting speakers, panelists to follow after Kong Edsel, and Kari will be our moderator. Welcome, everyone. I look forward to an exciting conversation.
All right. Thank you, Sir Jerry. All right. At this point, we will. It is an honor to introduce our keynote address speaker. Representative Edsel Lagman is the representative of the 1st District of Albay. Honorable Edsel Lagman is the current president of the Liberal Party of the Philippines. Of course, he's a well-known human rights lawyer and a politician who champions civil liberties, transparency, press freedom, and the rights of the marginalized sector. Maraming salamat for gracing our event this evening, sir. Magandang gabi po. Okay, so friends, please welcome our Liberal Party President, Congressman Edsel Lagman. Sir?
Carrie, thank you for that kind introduction. Good evening to one and all. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in his second State of the Nation address, said that, quote, nagsisimula ang lahat sa edukasyon, unquote. This is both a truism and a motherhood statement. It is a truism because it is the truth. Education is an instrument for personal social mobility and societal reform. An educated citizenry spurs development and is a prerequisite to participatory democracy. Education serves as an engine for economic growth because it makes highly skilled, adept, proficient, well-informed, and productive citizens who contribute to economic progress. But apart from skills and knowledge, education imparts the equally important facility for volunteerism and civic mindedness that translates to concern for the advancement and protection of one's community. It promotes the indispensable role of civil society in good governance. Education lays the foundation for community consciousness and places a premium on cooperation. It makes people realize that they are indispensable components to the development of their communities. Education is the formidable nemesis of poverty and truly a powerful driver of development. More than dole-outs, education alleviates poverty and reinforces the attainment of sustainable human development. Nation building is founded on quality education. Education foments consensus and prevents conflict. Education molds the essence of the human person. It is the driver of social reform and economic development, and the bedrock of a genuine democracy. Unfortunately, the President's aforesaid reference to the importance of education has become a motherhood statement. It has been repeatedly exhorted by presidents and leaders, but the Philippine education system is now in the doldrums. We have an education crisis. Consider the following. One, adequate appropriation is a fundamental component in invigorating the Philippine educational system. It goes without saying that equally important is the efficient and timely utilization of allocated funds. The three principal institutional components of Philippine education are the Department of Education for primary and secondary education, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority for technical and vocational training, and the Commission on Higher Education for tertiary education. Let us look at the annual budgets of these three agencies. For DepEd, the pre-pandemic appropriation is 501.1 billion in 2019. In 2022, its budget was 592.6 billion, or an increase of 15.45% from the pre-pandemic level. For the current year, the budget for DepEd and attached agencies is 678.3 billion, or an increase of 14.45% from the total budget of 592.6 billion in 2002. For 2024, the proposed budget in the President's National Expenditure Program is 714.1 billion, or an increase of only 5.28% from the 2022. For TESDA, the pre-pandemic appropriation was 12.5 billion in 2019. In 2022, its budget was 13.8 billion, or an increase of only 9.10% from the pandemic level. For the current year, the budget for TESDA is 16 billion, or an increase of 15.91% from the total budget of 13.8 billion in 2022. For 2024, the proposed budget in the President's National Expenditure Program for TESDA is 14.9 billion, or an increase of only 6.36% from the 2023 level. For CHED, the pre-pandemic appropriation is 51.4 billion in 2019. In 2022, its budget was slashed to 31.6 billion, or a decrease of a whooping 38.46% from the pre-pandemic level. For the current year, the budget for CHED is 30.8 billion, or a decrease of 2.58% from the total budget of 31.6 billion in 2022. For 2024, the proposed budget in the President's National Expenditure Program is 29.6 billion, or a decrease of 39.92% from the 2023 level. The total annual appropriations for these three agencies are not adequate to cope with the increasing enrollment rate, requirements for new classrooms, and the repair of damaged classrooms, allocation for school furniture, provision for adequate books and instructional materials for an ideal of one book per student or pupil, ensuring adequate ventilation in classrooms, increased salaries and benefits for teachers, healthcare facilities in schools, an ideal classroom ratio of 25 students per class, and quality laptops for teachers and students. Meanwhile, the budget for DPWH and DOTR increased 52.9% and 70.5% respectively, despite the constitutional mandate that the state shall assign the highest budgetary priority to education. Two, on the international level, we fail in comparison with our Asian neighbors. The Philippines is 77th out of 132 countries in the 2022 Global Knowledge Index, with a score of 44.1 out of 100. Global Knowledge Index measures a country's proficiency and capability in terms of education, innovation, knowledge, technology, and research and development. Our ranking plummeted by 21 places, down from 56% in 2021. It ranked below Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Brunei, and Vietnam. The Philippines placed last among our East and Southeast Asian neighbors, placing 70th out of 102 countries in the 2022 edition of online training platform Coursera's Global Skills Report, which ranks skills and proficiency of learners in the areas of business, technology, and data science. The country is slid down by one rank from 69th place in 2021. The Philippines data science proficiency percentile rank dropped to 21% from 44% in 2021. Our business proficiency improved to 62% in 2022 from 57% compared to the previous year, while our percentile rank in technology proficiency remained the same at a low 29%. Among 6 participating Southeast Asian countries, the Philippines ranked next to last in math and reading based on results of the Southeast Learning Metrics 2019. Only 10% of the students in the Philippines met the minimum reading standard, and 17% met the minimum mathematical standard expected at the end of primary education. Grade 5 students in the Philippines receive an average score of 288 in reading assessment, behind Vietnam, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Cambodia. Only Laos, with a score of 275, was below the Philippines. In mathematics, the Philippines and Myanmar tied at second to the last place with a score of 288, behind Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia, and ahead only of Laos. Three, the UNESCO reports that in terms of public expenditure for education as a percentage of a country's gross domestic product in 2019, the Philippines ranked fourth out of 8 participating ASEAN countries. With 3.2% of its GDP allocated to education, it ranked below Brunei, Malaysia, and Vietnam, and ahead of Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, and Cambodia. The OECD explains succinctly that, and I quote, public spending on education reflects society's investment in children to equip them with fundamental social and economic skills needed to be self-sufficient in their lives. Investing in education reduces poverty and boosts economic growth through human capital development, and most efficient in terms of long-term cost and benefit to society, and effective in terms of human capital development when investment starts during the early years and continues throughout childhood. Unquote. The 8th Congress, of which I was a neophyte member, created the first Congressional Commission on Education, EDCOM-1, to study, assess, and review Philippine education. Among its findings were the following: extremely inadequate budgetary allocation to education, a measly 1.3% of the GDP. Disparities in access to education tilted in favor of high-income families. High dropout rates in basic education, particularly among poor students. Low achievement, again among the poor students. Limited early childhood education. Little attention given to special learners and cultural communities. Ineffective values education. Mismatched skills and employment demands. Teachers, pre-service training, and graduate studies. Irrelevance of education to individual and social needs. And ineffective and inefficient organizational structure of the education system. EDCOM-1 noted that these issues had been unchanging since the Monroe Survey in 1925 up to 1991. It recommended, among others, the following: prioritization of and more funding for basic education, development of alternative learning modes, use of mother tongue from grades 1 to 3, strengthening teachers' training and education, adequate salary and incentives for teachers, strengthening of graduate education, creation of CHED and enhancement of technical and vocational education, and restructuring of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. Congress enacted legislation to address the findings and carry out the recommendations of EDCOM-1. These include the creation of CHED and TESDA, renaming of DEX to DepEd, and reorganizing the department with two major structural components: central office and field offices. Enactment of the Kindergarten Act of 2012, providing free preschool and adding 1 year to elementary grades. The Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, K-12 law, making secondary education mandatory and lengthening it by 2 years, and Republic Act 10931 providing for universal access to quality tertiary education. Despite these laws, the problems which ail Philippine education persist. 32 years following the EDCOM 1 report, Congress enacted Republic Act 11899, creating the Second Congressional Commission on Education, EDCOM 2, mandated to conduct a comprehensive assessment of Philippine education and to recommend transformative, concrete, and targeted reforms to make the Philippines globally competitive in both education and labor markets. According to Dr. Carol Mark Yee, EDCOM 2 Executive Director, the body has identified a total of 28 priorities under 1. Early childhood care and development, 2. Basic education, 3. Higher education, 4. Teacher education and development, 5. Technical vocational education, training, and lifelong learning, 6. Governance and finance, 7. Cross-cutting connectedness of learner pathways throughout the system. It is currently conducting multi-stakeholders consultations on the ground as well as through social media and other digital platforms. Dr. Yee added that EBCOM 2 is backstopped by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies and other agencies and research centers that provide empirical data. Indeed, we expect evidence-based policy proposals from EDCOM 2 that effectively respond to the needs of learners, teachers, and non-teaching education workers, and administrators of basic, tertiary, technical, formal, and non-formal training institutions. Hopefully, these proposals will be translated into concrete policy actions toward making education reforms contribute to the building of an authentic democracy. It behooves Congress to faithfully and religiously exercise its oversight function to ensure full and strict implementation of the laws it passes that impact not only the development of knowledge and skills, but also the equitable and just distribution of wealth and power in society. Pending further consultations with stakeholders, the recommendation of EDCOM 2 are still being finalized. I would like to tell you that an authority on education who requested anonymity gave the following recommendations. 1. Retain the K-12 basic education but improve its implementation. 2. Learner-centered and teaching-focused programs should be the priority of BET, CHED, and TESTA. 3. Improve governance of the schools and of BET-Ed with educators and education workers at the leadership of BET-Ed. 4. Create a watchdog for education budget utilization at all levels of BET-Ed governance. Strengthen local school boards. 5. Upgrade the entry-level salaries of public school teachers to at least salary grade 15 by amending existing salary laws or enact the long demanded 10,000 across the board increase. 6. Pay all government debts to teachers resulting from the limited implementation of the Magna Carta for public school teachers and fully implement the said law. 7. Expand and improve the teachers' health benefits under the existing laws and provide free access to health and medical services and facilities in the locality, at least in district-level cluster of schools, especially in remote municipalities. 8. Limit class size to 25 students per classroom and provide schools with necessary materials and facilities. Example, one-to-one textbook to student ratio, functional laboring, electricity, internet connectivity, water, sanitation, and disinfection facilities. 9. Review the existing K-12 curriculum and strengthen the comprehensive study of Philippine history, literature, and culture in all levels. Intensify the program for peace and human rights education and reinforce the indigenous people's education, especially in IP communities. 10. Establish an honest to goodness, fair, and just merit and promotion system in government service, especially in DepEd. 11. Ensure security of tenure of teachers and non-teaching personnel. Eliminate all forms of contractualization, both in private and public schools and all government agencies. Let us source more funds for education, not to finance the Maharlika Investment Fund for contingent investments. Funds are urgently needed now for education, not for inchoate returns which may never come. The funds to be sequestered from the Land Bank of the Philippines and from the of 50 billion and from the Development Bank of the Philippines of 25 billion can be put to better use to uplift education. The dividends from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas income can be used for budgetary support for the General Appropriations Act, as have been availed of in the past. These administration's priorities are wayward, and the government funds are wailing. The Chinese, who have the oldest education system in the world, and as one of the world's most rigorous, have a proverb that says, and I quote, if you are planning for a year, sow rice. If you are planning for a decade, plant trees. If you are planning for a lifetime, educate people. Unquote. Sowing rice and planting trees meets short and mid-term goals, but the rewards of education go beyond a person's lifetime, and its fruits can be harvested for generations to come. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Kong Edsel. Very insightful po. Of course, we can, readily summarize what Kong Edsel had said by saying that, we really, our leaders should put their money where their mouth is, no? So up until now, mukhang lahat ng tungkol sa edukasyon are more on motherhood statements. So it would be good to have very specific actions or recommendations from their end. Of course, we excitedly wait for the outcome of EDCOM 2, which would operate also as a review of the rollout of EDCOM 1 and how we will be moving forward from here on. Um, of course, yeah. So basically, it's really about investing in education, investing in our youth, and yeah, we feel that is very important. Which is also why that is the topic that we chose to zero in relation to uh, our event on SONA for this year. Moving on. Anyway, thank you, Kong Edsel, once again. And again, thank you to Sir Jerry for giving us that opening remarks. Um, Let me, I now have the privilege of introducing to you our panelists for this evening. So ngayong gabi po, first panelist is actually a good friend. As head of communications and principal speechwriter for um, three DepEd secretaries. Is that right? Three DepEd secretaries. He holds the distinction of having written three State of Education addresses. He is a staunch advocate of educational reform. Bong served as a senior policy advisor of DepEd Secretaries Butch Abad, Fe Hidalgo, and Jesly Lapus. Currently, he is the managing director of Alchemy Education Solutions and is the chief architect of Alchemy's groundbreaking education reform initiative, the Educator Empowerment Program, which is designed to enable K 12 schools to achieve rapid school improvement. So I'd like to introduce our first panelist this evening, Mr. Carlos Bong Valerao. Hi, Bong.
Hi, Carrie.
Anyway, we'll move on to. I will introduce all the panelists first, and then I will give everyone their 5 minutes, their opportunity to share their thoughts. Okay. Next panelist is Mr. Benjo Basa, who is the chairman of Teachers Dignity Coalition. He is more than a senior high school teacher at Caloocan High School, sir. Caloocan High
Yes.
School po. Yes. Sir Benjo is recognized as one of the leading figures in the Philippine teachers movement. He engages not just the DepEd but other government agencies regarding matters concerning teachers and students. Benjo sits as a board member in several advocacy groups, including Freedom from Debt Coalition, or the FTC, Bulig Pilipinas, Sulong Peace, and Education Network Philippines. He ran for the teachers as representative of Ating Guro party list in 2013 and 2016 elections to push for teachers' rights, welfare, and dignity. Magandang gabi po, Sir Benjo.
Yes, ma'am. Magandang gabi po. Magandang gabi sa lahat.
We're excited to hear your thoughts this evening, sir. Moving on, we have also from the youth student sector, we have RBJ Gatchalian, who is the founding chairperson of Kalasag Cotabato, all the way from Mindanao. All right, the founding chairperson of Kalasag Cotabato, RBJ Gatchalian, leads a youth-driven non-profit organization that encourages youth leaders to actively participate in nation building. An anti as a BS Communication and Media Arts graduate from UP Mindanao, RBJ spearheaded Buhat Initiative. It is an anti-disinformation campaign which aims to empower Mindanaoan youth to create truth-telling visual content. Galing. Okay, aimed at combating misinformation and disinformation in their communities. He actively volunteers in many organizations and causes, and he is a great advocate for serving the Filipino people and upholding the Mindanaoan community. Welcome, RBJ.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you for the introduction. Or I would just like to correct, I'm still in my fourth year.
Oh,
But that's
better.
Thank you for the introduction.
Salamat. Anyway, maybe we should start with Bong. Each of them will have their 5 minutes to share their thoughts on today's topic. And maybe we should start with you, Bong, from the NGO and CSO sector.
Okay.
Education.
Yeah. Okay. So 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. First off, I just want to say that Benjo, I didn't want. I didn't plan to watch the SONA. In fact, yeah, but it's. I only watch it now because I was invited for this. Okay, so anyway, so my reason for that is to be fair to the president. It has nothing to do with him. It's that I expected little from a 100, 200 word section on education, and it's a given that the president would want to say something that would be a feel good statement. Of course, you would hope that he would say something that would amount to more details on his plans, facts, as opposed to just hopes and aspirations, and making it appear that we are in good shape. Okay, so to me, there's a lot of motherhood statements, as the good congressman mentioned a while ago, that we should actually ignore. In the sense that these statements make it appear that we've already accomplished something, when in fact it's just an aspiration. So among them that really stood out for me was that statement about I quote, walang mamamayang Pilipino ang may iwan. Sounds good, but it means nothing. It got a lot of applause. And he also mentioned recalibration of the K to 10 curriculum to ensure that it is always relevant, responsive, and at par with international standards. Again, to me, it's still motherhood because we still have to figure out how to do that. Okay, and then there's what I would describe as more of the same. Okay, so the mention of additional teaching positions, admin personnel, alternative delivery modes, school safety nets like feeding programs, literacy and numeracy skills, good citizenship and sense of community to be integrated into the curriculum. These are all good, and we've been discussing this for the longest time. And to me, the big question is how? How do we do these things? How do we teach good citizenship? How do we improve literacy and numeracy skills? Do we even know how to do it? Okay? At the very least, as far as the SONA goes, you'd want to set the right tone, which can't be that we're in good shape or we're doing well enough tone. I think the tone should be brace yourself. We have a major education crisis in our hands, as the good congressman has mentioned also. We have an education crisis. My thinking is that education is not a priority under this administration, at least not yet. Okay, so, and you can see that with the priority legislative agenda that he mentioned towards the end of the address. He mentioned 12 legislative initiatives and none directly connect to education. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And again, I thank you for this opportunity. I hope I can help provide some clarity in this discussion and a bit of enlightenment. Thank you.
Salamat pong. Looking forward to expounding on your thoughts and talking more about these motherhood statements.
Yeah,
Maybe,
wait for
yeah.
Benjo.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm actually excited about how what these other our other two panelists would be saying. And actually, I was what struck me with what you were saying was that about saying na walang maiiwang Pilipino, because I was just di ba nagiging issue yung the concept of no child being left behind now being an issue that could cut both ways. So maybe
Well,
we can discuss
I
that.
think we've done a lot in terms of getting kids access to school. There's a big improvement over the years, not in the last administration alone, but in the last 15, 20 years we've been doing it. There's a lot of improvement. The question is, what kind of education are our kids getting? It's about quality.
All right. Okay, so with that, we turn over the floor to Sir Benjo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Good evening, Attorney Kari. Ng napaka-comprehensive na presentation, and actually I think parang wala na akong kailangan idagdag sa presentation ni Attorney Congressman Lagman. Of course, Sir Bong, magandang gabi. Hindi na ulit tayo nagkita. Yes, of course, mukhang ang central term ngayon na ginagamit natin is being mentioned several times by Congressman Lagman and of course by Sir Bong, and even you, Ma'am Kari, na binanggit po ng as described by Congressman Lagman, batay doon sa mga naging pahayag ng ating Pangulo. But hindi lang naman sa 2023 SONA natin to dapat sukatin at dapat tignan. I think if we are to assess the President's performance and the President's SONA no, to be particular, of course, titignan natin yan, no, doon sa 2022, no, and siguro further, no, tignan natin, no, doon sa election campaign, no, nung 2022, no. Well, marami naman talaga, no, na magagandang mga sinabi, no, ang lahat kandidato, no, in all fairness, no, sa presidente, no, sa ating incumbent president, lahat naman, ano, ay nagsabi ng magaganda, no, but of course, no, may mga specific lamang, no, na mga binabanggit, no, si President Marcos, no, like for example yung sinasabi niya na aalisin, no, or babawasan yung mga tasks, no, yung mga clerical tasks, no, ng ating mga guro, o mag-hire ng mga non-teaching staff, no, to provide, no, for these duties po, no, or people, no, to work for these duties, no. Ang hindi pa naman niya nagagawa sa kasalukuyan, ano po, may binabanggit din siya nung panahon ng kampanya, no, even before that, no. When he was a senator po, no, nung when was that, no, 2010, no, up to 2016, no, ay he filed, no, bills, no. In fact, no, yung binabanggit kanina ni Congressman Lagman, ano, na salary upgrading, no, to at least salary grade, have to, well, FYI, no, sa ating mga kababayan, ano, ang public school teachers natin sa Pilipinas ay among those lowest paid professionals, no, in the government service, no. Kami ay kabilang doon sa salary grade 15, salary grade 11, no, yung entry level, no. So yung proposal, no, na binabanggit ni Congressman Lagman ay pinopose na rin, no, ni Senator Marcos, no, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. noong 2013 and again nung 20.
Okay, Sir Benjo dropped out of the meeting. Siguro po, we'll move on to RBJ muna. Are you ready, RBJ?
Hi, Carrie. Thank you.
Hello. O, nawala si Sir eh. Ikaw muna. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well and staying dry while tuning in. And sa mga sinabi earlier ng previous speakers, especially kay Kong Lagman, sobrang profound and encompassing ang daming points na na-touch, and kay Sir Carlos and yung sinabi ni Sir Benjo earlier. And I think paulit-ulit natin maririnig ang mga points na ito for the next few minutes siguro with the discussion that we would be having. But in my case, I would like to begin my statement with a portion of President Marcos Jr.'s introduction on his recent SONA. And I quote, "1 year ago today, I stood here before you, setting forth the plans that we have to improve our economy, bring jobs to our people, improve the ease of doing business, recalibrate our educational system to adapt to the new economy, lower and rationalize energy costs, boost agricultural production, enhance healthcare, and continue social programs for the poor and the vulnerable." End of quote. Just like Sir Carlos, I did not intend to watch the SONA because as a communicator, I don't think that our president is a very good public speaker, and I felt like I had better things to do. But I watched it because I was invited to speak on this discussion. So, hindi na bago ang pangakong bagong lipunan, which alam kong marami sa atin ang paulit-ulit na itong narinig, especially noong 2022 national elections mula kay President Marcos Jr. at ng pamilyang Marcos. Nung nakaraan, pinangakuan din ang sambayanang Pilipino ng pagbabago. Hanggang doon lang. I think kilala niyo naman kung sino yung nagpangako noon. And currently, nakikita naman yung pagbabago at bagong lipunan. Ayun nga lang, para kanino? Para sa iilan lamang. 1 year has passed and yet andito pa rin tayo. Nakikita pa rin natin yung mga problemang kinakaharap ng lipunan not just 1 year ago but even 5 or 10 years ago. Despite these prevailing societal ills and the ongoing socio-political crisis of the country, we noticed a lack of interest and accountability from the Marcos and Duterte administration. Instead of addressing these problems head-on, for the benefit of the country, we saw that their priorities lie elsewhere. Yung mga narinig natin sa SONA, mga pinagandang salita. Katulad yan ng sinabi nila earlier, motherhood statements, puro lip service. Ramdam ba ito ng masang Pilipino? Kasi personally, hindi ko nararamdaman yung mga pagbabagong sinabi na yon at yung improvements sa sinabi ng ating Pangulo. And a bigger question, lahat ba ng sinabi niya ay totoo at tama? Sa dami ng problema ng Pilipinas, we saw how important it is for the Marcoses to clean their names from all the atrocities that their family has committed. And so mas inuna nilang linisin yon para gumawa ng bagong siguro version ng katotohanan. And nakita rin natin na mas inuna ang Maharlika Investment Fund na hindi naman kailangan ng bansa. Minamadali ang charter change that would further weaken the state of our country's democracy. Patuloy pa rin ang harassment sa mga journalists at mga aktivista, and we did not hear anything from the President. Sa estado naman ng edukasyon, maraming educational institutions ang lubos na naapektuhan ng COVID-19 pandemic, and the disruption brought upon by the global health crisis with an ill-equipped government only worsened the existing education crisis. The lack of equitable access to resources, the deficiency in classrooms, class facilities, and educators, the widening social divide, and teachers who are still overworked and underpaid, just like what Kong Lagman said earlier, are only some factors that contribute to the crisis. Students in the Philippines are confronted by homes and living conditions that are not conducive for learning, further distancing us from our goals of quality education. And I would also like to take this opportunity to remind our viewers that we must demand accountability from all the state forces and the government officials behind them who bombed and demolished and destroyed the Lumad schools that deliver education to the far-flung, underserved, and marginalized communities in the mountains. I have been a volunteer teacher for Lumad schools here in Mindanao, and nakakalungkot na marami sa mga napuntahan naming mga paaralan ay ngayon na ipasara na. And we can't see a near future yet na mabubuksan itong ulit. This utter disregard for the most fundamental rights of students and for the quality of which they are educated in our formal institutions are nothing but factors for how we regress as a society. Be it education, poverty, or other socio-economic problems, isa sa mga pinaka-apektadong sektor ay ang mga kabataan. These struggles prevent the majority of us from participating and advocating for genuine equity and institutionalizing societal changes. So on behalf of Kalasag and the youth, we insist that every learner must be given space to thrive, learn holistically, and contribute meaningfully in addressing the country's present conditions and needs. I believe that we can only empower and honor our harbingers of change, the youth and students, if we nurture an environment that makes learning holistic and liberating for them. Sabi pa kanina, if you want to change, long-term change, ayusin natin ang edukasyon. I think yun lamang po mula sa akin, and I'm also looking forward to a very fruitful discussion. Thank you, Ms. Carrie.
Sinasabi sa Constitution, the state shall protect and promote the right of all Filipinos to accessible and quality education. And kadalasan, ang pinakamalaking sektor na tinatamaan ng issue ng edukasyon talaga naman ay ang mga kabataan. No? So, one of the things that struck me dun sa kinukwento, with the thoughts that you shared, RBJ, was about, the lumad. No? Kasi pinakinggan ko particularly yung sa education part nung speech ng during the SONA. And there was a part there where he said that they're exhausting efforts to keep the young people away from sinister influence in the dark corners of society. So I don't know exactly what that means. Pero, di ba? Very poetic, but kind of scary. Pero
Kasi
anyway,
medyo naman doon.
balik po tayo kay Sir Benjo. Sorry, sir, naputol. Medyo maulan po kasi ngayon dito sa Metro Manila eh. Kaya ang hirap ng connection ng ating mga...
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
yes. Po. Balik po tayo sa inyo, Sir Benjo.
Opo. I think sa akin may problema na-disconnect po ako kanina. Well, anyway, just to wrap up po, no? Yun na lang, no? Kasi napakalaking usapin sa amin syempre yung teachers rights and welfare, no. At para sa amin dapat ito yung nasa gitna, no. Ito yung nasa sentro, no, ng education reforms kung gusto natin, no. Kasi everybody, no, who talk about the education sector, no, buildings, no, yung curriculum, no, facilities, no, everything, no. But then the most important, no, and the single most important factor, even UNESCO and even World Bank, no, agree, no, is of course the teacher. Na napaka-importante po nito. Kaya po para sa amin dapat, no, kapag meron tayong gagawin, anumang education sector reform, dapat po ilalagay natin doon sa paramount consideration yung rights, no, and welfare, no, basically the economic welfare of our teachers, no. Just to go back, no, to my earlier points po, no. Balikan lang natin 2022 merong President Marcos, no, cited 5 points, no, na binanggit niya, no. Of course, no, sinabi niya po dito, no, yung eto napaka-specific, no, napaka particular, no, nung kanyang mga binanggit. Sabi niya yung return to face-to-face classes, no, review ng K-12 program, institute refresher course and retraining, no, upskilling, no, for teachers natin. Yung educational materials and the school supplies, no, na merong the description ay poor quality, no, of course, kasi nung 2021, 2022, no, of course, no, malaking balita, no, yung mga modules, no, at yung mga laptops, no, na medyo hindi talaga maayos na po, no. And lastly, sinabi niya rin yung provision ng internet and electronic gadgets devices, no, sa ating mga bata, no. Unfortunately, yung mga ito po ay hindi po ito halos natupad, no. But of course, no, yung K-12, no, yung physical classes, no, yung in-person classes, syempre. Pag hindi pa natin to ginawa nung school year 2022-2023, tayo na lang talaga, no, sa buong mundo, no. So may mga ganyan po tayo, no. Ganun din yung K-12 program, no, yung DepEd, no, ay nag-initiate na, no, ng review, no, and in fact ready na, no, by August 10, I think, no, so 2 days, no, in 2 days ay ready na yung review, no, ng Department of Education doon sa curriculum natin, ano, from kindergarten to 10, ano po, no, and of course, no, yung iba hindi po talaga natin na itawid po yan, ano, specifically ito napaka-specific kasi nung binanggit niya, nung provide internet and electronic gadgets, no, for our students pa lang po ito, hindi pa natin pinag-uusapan yung teacher diyan, of course, no, that is also a common problem, no, for our teachers po, no, sa kasalukuyan. And lastly, no, nito pong huling SONA niya, parang hindi naman natin nakita, no, paano niya ni-review, paano niya in-assess, no, yung 5 points niya nung nakaraan, no. Kung noong nakaraan ay 2022 medyo motherhood, no. Ngayon medyo medyo paiwas, no, doon sa mga nauna niyang statements, no. So doon natin hinahamon, no? And in fact, walang banggit dito, no, tungkol doon sa teachers rights, no, and welfare, no. Specifically economic welfare ng ating mga public school teachers, no. So doon sa ganun naming punto hinahamon, no, yung ating pangulo, no. Tayo naman mabait, no. Ako po, lalo na ako, no, napakabait kong teacher, no. Hangga't maaari talagang di ko babagsak yung bata at bibigyan ko siya ng chance, no. Bibigyan ko siya ng pagkakataon makabawi, no. Meron pa naman tayong second quarter, no. Meron pa tayong third quarter at may final grades pa na ibibigay, no. So the president, no, still has 5 years, no, to go, no, in his presidency, no. At sana po ay at least, no, optimal, no, ay maayos po, no, itong mga problema natin, no, decades long problems of education sector. Yan muna, Attorney Carrie. Thank you.
Okay, salamat po Sir Benjo. Mabigat, kumbaga kanina sinabi natin, 'di ba, pag pinag-usapan yung edukasyon, pinakamalaking sektor na tinatamaan ng issue na yan, syempre yung kabataan. Pero syempre ang vehicle, 'di ba? Ang vehicle ng edukasyon ay yung mga teachers. So, di ba, usually, di ba, we always say na parang kung ikaw, you can't pour from an empty cup, di ba? So, kung
Yes.
salat yung mga teachers, di ba, ano yung ibibigay nila? At hindi biro ang maging teacher, di ba? Um, it's not just intellectually, it's psychologically and emotionally draining. Di ba? Nakikita mo yung sitwasyon ng mga estudyante mo. Syempre, to a certain extent, nararamdaman mo siguro na medyo parang feeling ko failure ako, di ba? Pag hindi ko na ipapasa, hindi ba natututo sa akin yung estudyante ko? Di ba? So, that desperation, di ba, to try to impart knowledge, di ba, is part and parcel of, being a teacher. Anyway, punta po siguro tayo sa ating mga katanungan. Meron na po mga nagtatanong kanina eh. Ayan, Sir Kong Edsel is here. Okay, so there's a question here. What kind of education can we expect from this administration? And the educational budget, confidential fund, ganyan. Baka this question could be best answered by Kong Edsel.
We cannot expect much from motherhood statements. I think that is not really. So we would demand from the president more concrete plans and to have more budgetary support for education. As I have reported, the increase of debt and attached agencies in the president's 2024 national expenditure program is only 5.28%. That's small,
Yeah.
considering the escalating number of students and the need for textbook, etc. Now, for TESDA, the increase is only 6.36%, when we should also emphasize the importance of technical and vocational education, because not all high school graduates will go to college. And there is an immediate need for them to be equipped in order to have proficiency on technical and vocational education. But what is really saddening is that with respect to CHED, the 2024 National Expenditure Program of the President reflects a decrease of 3.92%. So when we say that, when the person says that he will give importance to education because it is the simulain ng lahat, I don't think he is making a good and productive implementation of what he's saying in terms of budgetary allocation. We have always said that this constitution mandates utmost priority, budgetary priority to education, but we are not having that. As I mentioned earlier, the increase in the Department of Public Works and Highways and the Department of Transportation would be telling us, transportation would be telling us that the emphasis is not on education, but on infrastructure. Infrastructure is also the engine for development, but we should not forget that a mandatory priority is education. Thank you.
Thank you po, sir. Sir, there's also a mention on confidential funds. I remember, sir, that this was a big issue last year for the 2023 NEP. So actually, sir, when you talked about a decrease in the DepEd budget for this year, sir, saan kaya di-decrease? Saan kaya kinuha yung pagbaba, and would there be
I have not yet been furnished a copy of the National Expenditure Program. Hopefully, I could get one tomorrow. But pending perusal of the net, I am certain there are again profligate appropriations for confidential and intelligence funds. I will continue my advocacy to really slash so that we could realign it to socio-economic services, more particularly on education and health.
Salamat po, sir. For the rest, maybe you have your thoughts on what kind of education we can expect from this administration. Siguro start tayo kay Sir Benjo.
Sige, parang ang hirap, no? Ang hirap ano ba yan? Speculation ba yan? Or panghuhula? Whichever, no? Ang sa amin naman kasi, no, dapat lagi nating tinitignan. And of course, ine-engage, no? Kung sino man yung nakaupo, no? Hindi naman po tayo sectarian, no? At least, no, for that particular matter, no? Pero we really have to engage, no, yung policy makers, no, yung kongreso natin, at yun yung ginagawa po namin, no, yung leadership ng Department of Education at of course, no, up to the president, no, dahil siya naman talaga ang pinakamakapangyarihang tao sa bansa, no, at siya din naman ang may pinakamalaking boses, no, at kumbaga decisiveness, no, dun sa NEP, no, na hanggang ngayon hindi pa rin naman natin alam kung ano yung laman, no? Kaya yung isang tanong, by the way, Attorney Kari, no, na nakita ko dito sa ating comment section, ano, kung meron ba tayong salary increase next year, mahirap pang
Yes, I was
tignan.
gonna ask that.
Kasi, pero, well, akala ko meron ng idea si Kong Lagman, pero kung di pa natin nababasa, no, yung proposed budget po ng executive, no, so hindi pa natin yan masasagot.
Yeah.
But we keep on, no, pushing, no, for this, no, kasi kami naman maximum naman yung binanggit ni Kong Lagman, ano, na salary grade 15 or 10,000 across the board increase, no, for our public school teachers. Maximum yan, no. Kami naman pwede naman tayong mag-usap, no. Ang mahalaga ay meron tayong pinag-uusapan. Mas mahirap kung hindi tayo mag-uusap tungkol dito sa salary increase. Pasensya na po, no, baka naman ako'y magmukhang sectarian din, ano, kasi masyadong rights and welfare ng teachers yung ating pinuput forward, no. But syempre, no, with Sir Bong Balaraw, no, with Mr. Gatchalian and Kong Lagman, no, na nandito po sa ating forum, no, I hope they could more tackle, no, other issues po, no, of education sector. Basta kaya nga appreciated namin kasi nandito tayo, may legislator, merong advocates, no, at merong public school teacher, no, na classroom teacher po na kagaya ko dito sa panel, no, para alam na alam ni Sir Bong yan kasi nagkaroon naman kami ng engagement, no, sa DepEd, no, at si Sir Bong kasi talagang mas matanda pa siya sa mga umuupong DepEd secretary, I mean sa DepEd, hindi sa edad, no, sa service mo sa education sector. So yun, no, hindi natin talaga kaya pa, no, na hulaan, ano, kung ano yung kahinatnan ng education sector, but we have, no, to try our best, no, to push for our advocacies, no, and to push for these reforms, no, na matagal naman nating itinutulak at deserve rin naman, no, ng sektor ng edukasyon. Thank you, Attorney Kari.
Thank you po ulit, Sir Benjo. Actually, sir, kami po nagpapasalamat na pinaunlakan nyo kami ngayong gabi kasi we can't talk about, the issue on education without, the people on the ground, no, yung talagang nasa trenches. So anyway, move po tayo kay si RBJ po muna. Iga-grand finale ko si Bong. Si RBJ muna. What do you think is yung tanong, no? I think it's a very good question. From your end, what do you think you can expect as to the kind of education?
Thank you, Carrie. Personally, wala akong expectations masyado because I don't want to be disappointed. And sa nakikita natin, I think mahirap mag-expect, especially kahit na may 5 years pang natitira. But siguro on a personal note, na ang nakikita ko lang kasi ay hindi talaga walang level of pagpapahalaga, especially sa edukasyon, ang current administration. And hindi lang ang presidente. Currently, nakaupo ang ating vice president as DepEd secretary. yet hindi naman natin nararamdaman na may pake din siya, especially sa mga guro. I'm actually also a son of a public school, high school teacher. So alam ko ang pinagdadaanan ng mga guro, and mas lumaki yung appreciation ko sa trabaho or sa trabahong pagiging guro nung naging volunteer teacher na rin ako. And it's sad that our nation builders are left to fend for themselves. Maraming teachers na currently out of pockets yung pambili man lang ng chalk despite having the chalk allowance. Bakit? Dahil may mga estudyante pumapasok na walang pang lunch, walang pang merienda, walang pamasahe pa uwi. And we have students na because of the lack of access and sa kulang na facilities, kailangan bumiyahin ng 4-5 oras. Yung iba naglalakad ng 8 oras para mapunta lang sa paaralan. So, since nasabi na rin earlier ni Kong Lagman, hindi enough na puro positivity lang yung ibibigay, especially coming from a president and motherhood statements. Kailangan po natin ng concrete plans. And currently, wala akong expectations dahil mababa ang expectation ko sa administrasyong ito. But I know na hindi ako nag-iisa in the hopes na may future na lahat ng mga bata ay magkaroon na ng access to genuine free and quality education. Yun lamang from me.
Okay, salamat, RBJ. Okay, Bong?
Okay lang, medyo mahaba ito. Yeah, it's a very good question, I think, and it deserves a good answer, I think. Well, two things here. First is, I don't want to put the burden too much on the president. You know, he has a lot of things on his plate beyond education. We have to recognize that. So you depend so much more on your alter ego at the Department of Education, especially for TESDA and JED. Now, what I want to say here is that, to be fair to DepEd, they've done so much over the years. Okay, they've done really so much. There's so much improvement. The way things are done in the department, really, I'm impressed. And this goes beyond when I served there. I've been out for the longest time, and even the previous administration, I recognize the fact that they looked at it, the problem of education in terms of a strategic approach, okay, which they call KITE. I don't know if you remember, Benjo, yung KITE, okay? So basically, they've identified what we need to do to really improve the quality of our schools, okay? So, apat lang. So it's easy to remember. K is review K to 12. They're doing it now. That's at the central office level. I has to do with instructional resources. That's where Congress comes in. Congressman Edsel, you need more resources for the department. P, that's where I guess Benjo come into play. That's where the teacher development comes in. You really want to invest on teachers, and as Benjo has explained a while ago, teachers are the most important resource in the school. Not the classroom, not the computer, it's the teacher, and that's based on research. Okay? Other than the child, it's the teacher that matters most in the classroom. It's 30%, they say. Okay? Is the teacher, 50% is the child, everything else, including the parents, including the environment, including the facilities, that's the other 20%. Okay, so that's, and then the last would be getting the community involved. Okay, and so that's KITE. Now, we now go into the Matatag regime, which is basically KITE all over again, which is good. That you're not reinventing the wheel. It's the same thing. It's just a good new brand. Of course, they want a new brand, but it's the same thing. And I think that helps us look at the problem in a way that's easier to grasp. So now the question now is, how do you do all of these things? Okay, so it's easy. Yung budget is easy. Just double it, diba? It's all about Congress and the executive providing more funding. Okay, teachers, you need to really improve on them. Okay, improve the capacities, okay, of teachers, not just in terms of skills, but also in terms of attitudes, motivation, and values. Okay, that's where the investment should be in. Okay? And now, the other thing that I want to say about this, sorry, but is that you gotta realize that you can't expect everything from the Department of Education. Okay, so the issue of equity, that's the problem of DepEd. Okay, you don't expect them to prioritize quality. Now the problem is because of this mismatch between equity and quality, ina-append na lang yung quality sa quality education all the time. Parang it's an assumption that if you provide education, it's quote-unquote quality education. But you don't expect them to solve quality issues across the board because there's really too many problems in each school. So they have to focus on equity issues. Siguraduhin mo muna may classroom. Siguraduhin mo muna may teacher. Pero yung quality, I think, this should be the concern of the school. Okay? Individual schools should find a way. And that's where decentralization comes into play. Okay? And it's mandated, it's institutionalized in the department. But I think we need to really feel it among us, among ourselves, as educators, as education stakeholders. We have to own the reforms in individual schools. And it's not happening just yet. Okay? In part, it's the memo culture. They're relying so much on the department issuances. They fear the department issuances still. Dati natanggal na yan pero it's back, the fear. Okay, so it's a big problem, but there's a way to solve it. 2 hours is not enough, Carrie.
That's true. I would agree. So in their State of Philippine Education report, PBED mentioned that we have a learning crisis. I think who was that mentioned it a while ago na dapat yun yung naging statement, no, na we have a crisis. Kasi medyo actually when listening to that portion of the SONA, medyo pa siya parang we're kind of doing good, di ba? Yay us, di ba? Medyo ganun yung tone. Which is a little surprising for me, considering that we are waiting for the outcome of EDCOM 2 at this point. No? So it could have been, I would have expected more of the fact that there's a learning crisis based on studies and a lot of releases about that. And also there is or that that he's looking forward to the outcome of EDCOM 2. So on your end, since we already mentioned EDCOM 2, ano po yung wish list ninyo or yung tinitignan ninyo na posibleng lumabas sa dun sa EDCOM 2? Umpisa po siguro tayo kay Sir Benjo.
Yes, no, of course, no, kanina doon sa presentation ni Congressman Lagman, no, napakarami po doon, no, yung kabilang doon sa aming tinatawag na 13-point teachers dignity agenda, no. Again, ngayon hindi na ako mag-apologize, no, pero yung aming mga isinusulong syempre, no, dahil I think I have established naman the rationale kung bakit namin isinusulong primarily yung teachers concerns, yung teachers welfare, kasi hindi naman talaga ito pwedeng ihiwalay sa kabuuang advokasya at reforms sa education sector, at napakahalaga nito, and everyone agrees naman. One thing siguro na maganda this past few months, I think, is the admission by the Department of Education itself, that there are problems, short of saying that the education is in crisis. Although I think hindi yun directly sinabi ni VP at Deputy Secretary Inday Sara. 'di ba? But close to saying, no? Na may problema talagang malaki, no? At nasa crisis tayo, no? Of course, no? Yung pagsasabi ng crisis is attributed, no, to other entities, no? We have some other entities, no, na hindi ko ma-cite ngayon, no? But then meron din tayong mga researches, no? At yun yung importante, no? Ang unang-unang napakahalaga, no, kapag may gusto tayong ayusin, ay aminin natin na may problema. Diba? But of course, the mere admission cannot solve the problems, no? Pero at least realistically, meron tayong basis, no, para magkaroon. Kasi kung sinasabi natin dati na ang Pilipinas ay maganda, ang Pilipinas ay nasa kanyang golden age, no, wala na tayong maayusin. Uupo na lamang tayo, at kung ako yung policy maker, wala na akong ipapasang panukalang batas, no? But then again, ngayon, although hindi ganoon ang tono ng pangulo natin, pero ganoon ang tono ng akademya, na magkaiba, no? Ang tono ng basic education report, no, ng Vice President natin, nung I think January 30th, 2023, ay iba, no? Ina-admit talaga na marami, no? At ito ay naglabas siya ng mga datos, no? Ina-admit na napakalaki ng problema, no? So yun po, no? Pero syempre hindi naman na natin to kayang itago, 'di ba? Ang PIDS nagkakasundo, no? Ganito po ang situation. No, yung mga think tank ay nagkakasundo na ganito yung sitwasyon natin. No, meron pong research din na ginawa, na nilabas, no, ang CHR through a resolution, no, nung late 2022, nilabas po nila earlier this year, at nakita po natin doon, no, na talagang failure itong K-12 program. Ngayon, last Monday lang ay dininig, no, sa I was among, no, the resource persons doon sa TWG, no, ng panukala para baguhin itong K-12 program. At ang nagpanukala is, no less than the former President Arroyo, no, na para mag-revert tayo, no, doon sa 10-year, at least gagawin ito, 10-year cycle, no, at least gagawin optional yung senior high, no. While we do not totally agree, no, doon sa idea, no, ang maganda dito ay pinag-uusapan na, no, at lumalabas, no, marami pong mga resource persons na nandoon, no, na nasa academia, at lumalabas at talagang meron tayong problema, no. So ano yung ngayon lang ako sasagot, Ma'am Kari, no? Ano yung inaasahan natin sa ayun, ano? Ano yung inaasahan natin? Akala ko nawala na naman ako. Ano yung inaasahan natin, ano? Siguro winawar na ako nung StreamYard na dumiretso ka na sasabihin mo. What would we expect, no, from EDCOM 2, no? Yun po, no, ay tugunan po ng EDCOM 2. After all, napaka-powerful niyang EDCOM 2, no? Tugunan yung mga resulta nitong mga researches po na ito, no, na hindi po natin na maitatago na meron talaga tayong problema, no, at mag-recommend ng mga solusyon dito, no, sa executive at sa legislatura. Thank you.
Salamat po, Sir Benjo. Totoo naman di ba? Pag may problema, ang una mong gagawin is to recognize that there is a problem, di ba? Otherwise, wala kang susolusyonan, di ba? Kung wala namang problema. Bong, yeah. So, ano yung wish mo na outcome ng EDCOM 2? Or what are you looking forward to?
Well, I just want to follow up what Benjo said regarding the issue of the budget. I want to highlight that. Yes, of course, we need more funding. Okay, number one. And when I was in DepEd, we were playing around with the figure of 150 billion at that time. Okay, and then BBM would slash it. Okay, that's the problem. And even that, at that point, I was actually asking our planning people then, how much do we really need? I mean, to solve everything in terms of resource gaps. Okay, and they made a computation from 150. Actually, at that time, at 150, what we really needed was 600. Okay, so I'm assuming, that's the situation. Okay, and unless you solve that, then you'd always have that problem. And I'm assuming it's still short up to now, even though, as Congressman Edsel said, it's already at 600. It's still really small, 700. Okay, so that's one. Now, uh, EdCom 2, okay, so I'm hoping that we look at the situation in terms of providing a more strategic approach to solving the problem of quality of our schools. Okay, I think Benjo covered already yung funding and all that teacher welfare issues. So budget increase for resource gaps to solve the resource gaps, and then I'm looking forward, sana, if they could really bring in the issue of decentralization through SBM, through school-based management, okay? Which leads to school empowerment, okay? The other issue is teacher workload. You really have to reduce that, okay? They're wasting so much time on reports, okay? And which is, that time is better used teaching, teacher development, and spending time with their families. Okay. Then the other issue is textbook development, which I think would require more investment and Congressman, legislation. We have to come up with a new way of coming up with textbooks. The current approach really doesn't work. We're not coming out with good textbooks. Okay. One more point that I want to raise about EdCom is I just hope that we don't suffer from risking complacency. We might be complacent to think that, oh, there's EdCom 2. Okay, it's all same thing happened with K to 12. Even before it started, I was worried about it that people wouldn't care anymore about education because they solved it with K to 12. Okay, we don't want to be complacent. Okay, we need to do much more. Okay, EdCom 2 is good, but we need more work on it.
And for education, di ba, it's well, as with a lot of, policy changes, di ba, or implementations, medyo matagal before mo makikita yung impact, di ba? So it takes time. And
yes and no. Kasi kami, I'm advocating for the concept is called rapid school improvement. Okay, which you can actually do. Okay, at a school level, you can't do it across the board, one whole province. It's so hard to do that. But individual schools should be able to do it if you are ready for it. There's a science to it, yung rapid school improvement. Okay, there are 4 domains. You have to cover everything, wherein you can really improve your school. Okay, if you focus on it. Now, why is that significant? Number one, your students, your children can't wait. Okay, so you can't wait for 2 years, before 3 years, 4 years, 5 years before you provide quality education to a child. Okay, yung grade 1, okay, grade 2 na yan next year. If he did not get quality education at grade 1, he will never ever get quality education for grade 1, which is foundational all the way to college. That's your problem. You really need to provide it. Now, the other point is, beyond that fact that the kids need it now, it can be done. It can be done. Okay, but yeah, we need to teach our educators how to do it. Our school leaders, how can you rapidly improve your schools significantly? That's the challenge.
Yeah, so that is something that is permissible under the current setup. And if yes,
there are a lot of policies that make it difficult to happen. Yung real decentralization, reducing the memocracy, they used to call it. You want the department, especially at the central office, to just provide guidance and support, and let the schools determine their fate.
Yeah.
So it's a different mindset altogether.
But,
and we've been discussing this since 2004, 2005.
It runs counter to the whole setup kasi ng bureaucracy, di ba?
Yeah. Well, well, I guess that's the reason. One reason why it's this way. It's actually yung school-based management was institutionalized. So all schools are talking about it. Di ba, Benjo? Your schools are reporting on SBM. But
Mm.
deep down, nandito pero wala dito eh. They have to own it. They have to own school-based management. And at the central office level and the division offices and the regional offices, they should encourage it. Give them more freedom. Let your principals and teachers determine their own fate. Just give them the support and guidance.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I like that idea actually. Iniisip ko lang how it's going to be, you know.
This is not
How,
mine. Huh? This is like a global
yes.
phenomenon.
Yes, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, iniisip ko lang nga kung paano siya i-roll out, di ba? How to go about doing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, RBJ, same question. What are you expecting or what are you wishing EdCom 2 would come out with?
I think to add on what Sir Carlos said earlier, in terms of the school-based management, and syempre nasabi mo rin kanina, Carrie, na paano to siguro mangyayari if ever ipupush siya or ipagpatuloy or ma-institutionalize na talaga at may genuine na pinapractice na ng bawat schools. I think dito napapasok ang komunidad wherein wag nating hayaan na ang mga guro lang or ang gobyerno in general ang magdadala ng pagbabagong inaasam natin in terms of the educational system. And syempre dahil educational crisis ito, I think mas magandang all hands on deck. Pero nasabi rin earlier na despite these things and knowing na it is an educational crisis, maraming walang pakialam. So I think kulang pa ba ang awareness in terms of telling people na there's still a problem? Siguro itagdag na rin natin na kulang pa ang accountability kasi siguro hindi directly inaamin that there is an educational crisis. So pwedeng ganon. But I think once everybody gets on board and we realize that it's not just the teachers or the government. It takes a village to actually fix this crisis. Mas mabilis natin itong maayos. And syempre, hindi ko rin alam kung paano currently with the little time that we have. But I agree with the previous points raised earlier. In terms of wish list naman, I think I'll just re-echo what everybody else said na bigyan ng budget ng edukasyon. And syempre, kung hindi walang budget na that would give teachers a decent and comfortable life for them to be able to teach well and maapektuhan ng ang student body, ang mga estudyante. And idagdag na rin natin na without the proper budget allocation, hindi holistic ang pagkaaral. For example, dahil sa recent na budget cuts, I'm also part of a varsity team kasi. So masasabi ko na ramdam namin kasi merong hindi nakakapag-compete, wala man ng allowance for the varsity na meron naman before. So yun siguro, madali lang hanapin yung pera, especially kung willing naman silang ibigay ito sa education sector. So yun lang from me, Carrie.
Alright, salamat RBJ. Let's move on to Kong Edsel. Sir, your thoughts po on... Sir, you're on... there.
Can I
Sige
be
pa, sir.
heard?
Yes, sir.
You know, Kari, I invariably refuse to join fora and sessions before the SONA to make a wish list of what the president must say. Because I want the president to say what he wants to say, and we would react on what he has said or failed to say. I have the same approach to the report of EDCOM 2, which is in the final stages already, and not to be influenced by what we say or wish that they should say. But silently, I want that the report of EDCOM 2 must be evidence-based and its output empirical. Number two, I hope that they would underscore the need for adequate and more budgetary allocations. And at the same time, have a watchdog to really monitor the efficient and timely utilization of what has been appropriated. Number three, that the EDCOM report must be learner-based and or centered, and at the same time, teacher-focused. And fourth and the last, the hierarchy of the Department of Education must be under the stewardship of educators and education workers, not politicians. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Gusto ko lang balikan si Sir Benjo doon sa ni-raise na possible dito changes ni Bong, no, na mag-decentralize. Do you think that's sir? Do you think that is feasible? And paano kaya pwedeng gawin?
Feasible, no, and actually we have several policies, no, in place, no, para gawin yan, pero talagang may problema sa kultura, no. Kaya nga ang term nga diyan ni Sir Bong ay no, democracy, no. So governance based on a memorandum, no, coming from the central office, no. Yan yung problema natin, ano, minsan, no, kahit inaalaw na ng central office, like I will give you a specific example, no. Nung April at May, no, na tumataas yung ating heat index, no. So doon sa existing policy ng DepEd, no, kapag ka nagkaroon ng mga pagkakataon na hindi na possible yung tinatawag po natin na in-person classes, no, a principal or a school head, no, may have this authority, no, this power to suspend, no, itong physical classes. Pero hindi niya yung ginagawa, no. Tatanungin niya muna yung supervisor, tatanungin niya muna yung superintendent, tatanungin niya muna yung regional director, no, at yung regional director kung magkaminsan magtatanong pa sa central office kung pwede ba. And yet meron na. No, ang dami na po natin 'yan, no. Well, even, no, ito ay alam mo yung masakit dito, no, Attorney Carrie, no, and everyone. Ang pinakamasakit dito, no, kapag ka may kinalaman sa welfare and rights ng teachers, ang hirap, no, ang hirap niya na ipatupad, no, na initiative nung local, no, nung field offices. Pero napansin ko, Sir Bong, no, I hope you would agree, no, kapag ka may kinalaman sa fiscal, no, matters, no, ay ang lalakas ng loob naman, ano, ng mga nasa field, no, na gawin, ano, at in guise of, let's say, school empowerment or principal empowerment. I am generalizing this, no, pero yun po yung ating napapansin. Ang dami nating magagandang policies, in fairness, no, sa department, no, in the past, no, I think nagsimula ito, no, nung binabasa namin po ito, nagsimula ito nung mga early 2000s, no po, no, mid 2000s, nagsimula po yan, ano. Ang daming mga magagandang policy ng DepEd, no, na kailangan nating i-review, hindi pa dahil kailangan nating palitan, kundi kailangan nating tulungan, no, yung Department of Education on how to implement, to enforce these policies, these good policies po.
Salamat po, Sir Benjo. So it's really more of the implementation. Merong mga existing, ay hindi lang implementation, more of attitude, ano, ng mga players.
Yes, ma'am.
Sa
Yes.
to be more aggressive siguro, at saka mas 'di ba? Mas malakas ang loob, 'di ba? Na gawin yung dapat nilang gawin or yung tingin nila dapat gawin. Punta tayo kay RBJ. Malaking issue ang malaking issue ang mental health among students. Medyo shift tayo ng konti kasi parang kabit-kabit siya with kasi we did mention a while ago yung no one being left behind, 'di ba? I mean that has been an education mantra, 'di ba, for quite some time. And lalong nag-igting 'yan nung time ng pandemya. 'Di ba? Kasi ang daming moving parts eh, 'di ba? Access, yung mga ganyan, no? So, how does how does that how did the pandemic siguro ano na lang natin, no? How did the pandemic affect or impact students and their education?
Based on experience and syempre sa mga nakasalumuhan naming estudyante with our programs and projects, iba na ngayon. And syempre, a lot of yung mga nauna sa amin magsasabing, iba na ang mga bata ngayon, kesyo ganito, kesyo ganyan. Opo, iba na po talaga. And kahit ako na medyo malapit lang sa mga high school at elementary students, masasabi ko rin iba na after the pandemic. And syempre, nung pandemic, lahat tayo naka-survival mode. So, a lot of the students actually shifted their focus. No? Imbes na pagtuunan nila ng pansin yung pag-aaral or mag-focus lang sa school, maraming kailangang maghanap ng trabaho para buhayin ang pamilya o gustusan ang sarili. And syempre, hindi madali para sa lahat ang napagdaanan, especially ng pandemic, and with the inadequate government response. So in terms of mental health, matagal naman nang may problema sa mental health in terms of paano siya dinidil, especially in school settings. Sa pagkakaalam ko, may trainings naman for psychological first aid na ino-offer sa mga teachers. Not to sound siguro problematic, pero hindi ko alam kung enough ang training na ito. I am also a peer facilitator. I am an advocate for mental health. And I've undergone the same trainings and hindi siya madali, especially if hindi ka ready to do it. So, tinitrain natin yung teachers to offer psychological first aid and to check on the signs para mapigilan in case worst comes to worst. And I think hindi yun enough kasi sa cases naman ng schools, hindi lahat ng public schools ay merong sabihin na lang natin may psychologist or counselor with the appropriate training. May guidance counselor pero enough ba to for the population? Kasi syempre may guidance counselor, sabihin natin kahit yung guidance counselor na yun trained on a psychiatrist. I don't know anong term nung training na yon, but siguro mataas ang training. Pero kung tatlo lang sila in a population of 5,000, paano ba magiging enough yun? And syempre, kung ang teacher trained na bantayan ang signs in terms of tendencies ng mga bata, mag-isa lang din ang teacher and 60 to 70 minsan ang isang classroom. So, syempre, we're not creating environments wherein mental health is pushed to be better. Diba? So, we have environments right now na actually siguro magpapalala na existing mental health conditions ng kabataan. And hindi pa natin, isasali pa natin doon na magkaiba ang conditions ng pinanggagalingan ng bawat estudyante. Iba-ibang environment at home. And syempre, idagdag na rin natin na malala ang poverty sa Pilipinas and we have an economic crisis that's ongoing. So syempre, dumadami yung factors that would eventually affect the mental health of students. And kung sasabihin natin na sa education sector at teachers lang ang gagawa nito, so syempre malaking problem na siya kasi kailangan na we would pass for better legislation in terms of protecting mental health or siguro preventing the worst comes to worst to happen. And just recently lang, I think, hindi lang ito siya sa isang paaralan pero may mga cases na hindi na kinakaya ng mga estudyante and syempre, trigger warning, nag-suicide. So, ano ba ang kaya natin gawin? So siguro, from an NGO, schools can partner with the community. And syempre, kung mental health ang pag-uusapan, huwag natin ilagay sa sa shoulders lang ng iilan. It would take a village to actually, safeguard the mental health of not just children or students, but everyone. Kasi hindi lang naman mga estudyante ang affected. Siyempre, maraming teachers na hindi mapaprocess ito dahil ang teachers, doon lang trabaho kung trabaho kung trabaho. And a lot of them don't have the emotional capacity to process their feelings. Kasi nga, may kailangan ipasa, may kailangan gawin. And yung mga teachers natin, may mga pamilya pa. So, parang sa lahat ng sinabi ko, lumala or sobrang laki ng problema in terms of mental health. And I think I'll cut it to that, na it would take a community and a village to actually safeguard everybody.
Well said, RBJ. Salamat. And totoo, no, yung kasi part nung, kaya I raised it because education really had a huge impact, di ba, in relation to mental health nung time ng pandemya. Kasi nga, as you had mentioned, kabit-kabit yung problema di ba? Lalong naging pronounced yung inequalities, di ba? Lalong naging pronounced yung mga kakulangan ng mga certain people, di ba? And, it exacerbates the situation for them. Tapos sa mga teacher, maganda yung na-raise mo, no? Pero ang naisip ko dyan, una, maganda yung na-raise mo, nagdagdag trabaho na naman sa kanila, di ba? Na, una, hindi naman lahat ng tao talaga may capacity, di ba? To be a counselor, di ba? To do that. Plus, if you think about it, di ba? Who's looking after the teachers at this point? Maybe punta tayo kay Bong because Bong's forte is on teacher training, diba?
Yeah.
So how?
Again, to be fair with the department, they're doing a lot of work trying to find ways to bring in more guidance counselors in schools. Okay, there's a technicality to it. There's a shortage of guidance counselors to begin with, qualified. So they're trying to fix that problem. But even if you find enough guidance counselors and you can fund all of these guidance counselors for all 46,000 or so schools, public schools, you have to realize that the teacher is the most important person so far as the child is concerned, as far as his life in the school is concerned. Okay, so as the frontliner, the teacher should have enough basic guidance and counseling skills. Okay, and the teacher should also be good at pedagogy and classroom management so that you can really address all of these behavioral issues in a positive way. Okay,
That's right.
so there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. But Carrie, can I just want to insert something that's coming from I was really happy that Congressman Edsel mentioned the watchdog. Okay,
Yes.
so it's a good idea, Congressman. I think you might want to look at the UK model, wherein they have a separate agency. It's called Ofsted. Okay, it's the Office of Standards in Education. It's outside their Department of Education, but it's an audit function, external audit function of the Department of Education, and they evaluate schools and school performance. It's something that might be useful for legislators like you.
Right. Thank you, Bong. Kong Edsel, would you like to comment on Bong's suggestion, or is there something that's already in the work that in relation to that, or it's not something we can do until the EDCOM proposals and outcomes have been
Well, most sensitive like the DPWH have what is known as ombudsman for the agency. But I don't think it has been effective because the ombudsman assigned, which is not actually organic to the office of the ombudsman, in most cases, would have a great fellowship with the leadership of the agency, so much so that it does not the ombudsman does not discharge its functions well. So we must have to create an independent, honest to goodness watchdog. And I would check on Bong's recommendation about the UQ model.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Well, okay, we have 10 minutes on the clock. Maybe we do our final round, so we'll have more time to share our thoughts. Maybe our last question would be, how do you think our freedoms and democracy is affected by this crisis in education? How do you think that impacts, yung ating mga kalayaan at ang ating demokrasya? Sino po ang gustong mag-umpisa? RPJ, would you like to do it?
Okay, I think I'll go first.
Thank you.
How do I think the educational crisis will impact our freedoms and democracy? So, if the citizens do not realize that they have the right to do certain things or to exercise these rights, syempre makakurtail na ang kanilang freedom. And when we don't know up to what extent lang tayo or na we can actually exercise certain things, therefore we cannot participate well in nation building or to challenge o kung sino man yung nakaupo. Kasi syempre, a lot of us don't think or mali yung pagka-state, but a lot of us don't know that we actually have the power to implement the changes that we want. Especially kung lahat tayo magsasama-sama. And syempre, we can talk to our congressman and senators because we elected those people. Therefore, they have to be accountable to us. They have to listen to us. And paano ba to bakit natin siya mako-connect in terms of the educational crisis? If hindi ito na ituturo na may ganitong case or na pwede natin itong gawin sa paaralan. Let's start with the elementary, diba? Kung hindi, to be fair, hindi ko po siya natutunan from elementary till high school. College na po ako na na-realize ko na actually we can implement those changes. So, dun pa lang, may gap na hindi alam ng taong bayan na they could actually question, they could actually create these remarks or challenge the people in power. And siguro, if we have a country that's filled with people that haven't gone through quality education, then we will not be able to defend ourselves on the individual level and as a society. Kasi syempre, may ibang tao na nakaupo na sarili lang iniisip or kapakanan na nag-iilan. And to be honest, mas marami naman ang masang Pilipino, but patuloy tayong oppressed. So we need to be able to educate more people that we actually have the power and to take back that power. Syempre, kasi ang genuine democracy should entitle us to challenge these people. So I think yun lang from me.
Salamat, RBJ. Sir Benjo?
Yes, no, syempre meron pong direct na impact itong education sa democracy, no. We've seen this in history, na yung mga pasista, mga authoritarian regimes, ay sumibol, tumubo, doon sa pinaka-atrasado rin ng edukasyon ng mga tao, in the past. At nagagamit din naman yung ignorance, para linlangin, para lokohin yung mga taong bayan, Kaya minsan naiisip natin baka sinasadya, ng mga nasa kapangyarihan, na lalong maging ignorante yung mga tao, na laging maging mababaw, manood na lang ng TikTok, at ng mga Facebook Reels, kaysa magbasa ng libro, kaysa mag-aral at pumunta sa library at mag-research, Dahil kapag tumatalino yung mga tao ay natututunan nila na sila pala ay naloloko. No? So, papasok dyan yung education. At napakalaking challenge sa atin yan ngayon. Ano? Napakalaking challenge na paano natin tuturuan na maiparating at maisapuso, no? Maisaisip ng ating mga mamamayan yung basics, no? Rule of law, no? Yung freedom, no? Individual freedom, collective freedom, no, yung human rights, no, na napaka-importante, pinaglaban ng mahaba, no, sa ating kasaysayan, no, and yet parang ngayon ay bumabalik at parang nawawala, nababawasan kung hindi man ay talagang tuluyan, ano, na nating itinatapon, ano, nakakalungkot, no, at dito papasok yung education, no. One thing din, ano, na kinakailangan natin ding tignan yung yun pong sinasabi po natin, academic freedom, no, na dapat maibigay, no. At nakita naman natin ng mga nakakaraan, ano, mismo ang ilang education institution ay pinagbabawal yung ilang mga titles, no, ng mga libro. These are researches, these are literary books, no, na ipinagbabawal, no, parang tinulad tayo nung panahon ng ancient period, no, na pinagbabawal yung mga libro, no, ng kalayaan, ano, o ng freedom of thought, no. So nakakalungkot, kaya dapat yung ating educators din ay i-uphold, no, itong usapin na ito ng academic freedom. Merong problema lang tayo dahil kahit sa definition technique ng academic freedom, parang doon lang yan, ano, doon lang sa higher education, no, sa Department of Education hindi na, no. So yung democracy pa din, ano, kung ano yung yung lesson plan, ano. Meron tayong meron tayong tawag dito, meron tayong model, no, ng lesson plan, ano. Pero natatakot yung marami nating mga guro, no, na mag-debate, no, doon sa model na yan, no. So lahat susunod, no. And of course pati yung ilan pang mga policies, no. So tingin ko naman ay ang Pilipinas naman ay hindi naman tayo babalik, no, sa dark ages, no, in terms of education and freedom, no. Naalala ko, no, when I attended, no, yung FNF, no, na seminar, no, 10 years ago, a decade ago, no, ang title nun ay No Education, No Freedom. At ito ay nananatiling totoo. No education, no freedom, no. We cannot be truly free, no, kapag tayo ay ignorant. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Sir Benjo. Well said. Thank you po. Bong, your thoughts?
Yeah, kukontrahin ko si Berjo. Yeah. Well, yes, of course, it's obvious freedom from want, okay, is the root of all of this. If you don't have the employable skills, then you'll be forever wanting and you won't have any freedom at all. And then the other issue there is you want an enlightened citizen. Okay? I bring up you brought it up in your invitation. You mentioned yung ROTC and red tagging, which are unnecessary distractions in the education realm, I think. And but it's very critical that it's discussed. Okay, it's because it's very dangerous. To me, they mean well, perhaps, in terms of mga ROTC, but we shouldn't teach values that way. Okay, as a former values teacher, that's very dear to me. You cannot teach values based on fear or coercion. Okay, yung sumunod na lang kayo attitude, which has been prevalent lately. So parang, as a values teacher, ang ano ko dun is, okay, the child already knows what's right or wrong. Right? It's easy for them to appreciate it. Go to the textbook. Obvious yung sagot, kahit hindi mo pa tinuturuan, alam na nila. Okay? Ang question, pag nakakita sila ng totoong matanda na tumatawid sa kalye, will they do it? No. But they can answer the quiz in class. Okay? That there's a big So it's not about just forcing them to do something, sumunod lang kayo. They have to appreciate it. So today, we always have that problem na tanungin mo yung bata, dapat ka bang umihi dyan sa pader? Okay? Obviously, the answer is no. But you do it pag walang nakatingin. Okay? Which is the problem in the Philippine society, I think. Na pag walang nakatingin, kailangan bantayan kita, dyan dyan ka lang gagawa ng tama. Okay? Which is very dangerous. All the way up to getting into government. Diba? So, what we want is to see civic action, community involvement that is voluntary, okay, not forced or coerced. And it starts with good values training, I think. And it's an enlightened education system, real quality education. That's important.
Thank you, Bong. Kong Edsel?
Democracy calls for the active participation of the citizens. The more educated and the more enlightened the citizens are, the more they will participate in the workings of democracy and democratic governments. I would like to emphasize that educated citizens will freely and fully exercise the right of expression and dissent, which is the hallmark of democratic institutions. That is the nexus between an educated citizenry and the institution of democracy.
Right. Thank you, Kong Edsel. So essentially, moving forward in our discussion, that the basically what we talked about today is that we're saying that enough with the motherhood statements. We have to put our money where our mouth is, di ba? Pag-usapan na natin ang budget, di ba? Hindi lang na ito ang mga wishes natin para sa edukasyon. We are looking forward to the outcome of EDCOM 2. But sa dulo, di ba, any improvement, any development sa ating education sector will always take a village, di ba, to move it forward. So, kailangan natin lahat makialam. And dahil pinag-usapan natin ang pakikialam, we have a rather engaging audience this evening. Ang dami pong fans ni Sir Benjo at saka ni Bong. Ang dami nilang fans. Saka ni Kong Edsel. May mga shout-outs po. So, may mga nag-hello kay Sir Benjo at saka kay Bong and kay Kong Edsel. And na-bring up kanina yung nagtatanong ng salary increase. Mukhang wala. I'm sorry. And I think that will, tama sir, no? Sir Edsel, it will entail an actual amendment of the law. Di po ba? To have an increase in the salary. Sir, may inaanak po kayo dito. Hi daw po Ninong Edsel. Okay, Miss Anna Bilbo Fajardo saying, ang talakayang ito ay napakahalaga lalo sa pagpaplano kung paano mapabuti ang sistema ng edukasyon. Naway isaalang-alang nila ang mga suhestyon galing sa inyo. Okay, maraming salamat Sir Benjo at sa lahat. Of course, Lacan Alegre commented about mental health issues, how the mental health issues were on a rise during the pandemic. And we discussed kanina na dahil nga marami rin siyang, kumbaga ang daming moving parts in relation to that. So ang daming naging factors that would affect that. Okay, this is a good comment from Mr. Henry Tenedero on teaching pedagogy. Actually, I agree. Students are not failing because of the curriculum. Or not only because of the curriculum, siguro, no? Any subject can be taught when there is a match between teaching style of the teacher and learning styles of the student. So, problema dito, ang tanong, sino mag-a-adjust, di ba? Pag ganyan. Although, yes, I do agree that, merong some, may some connection, di ba? To actually, yung absorptive capacity ng tao, di ba? It will depend. Tao rin naman lahat yan. So, parang, di ba, kung paano nila matatanggap yung mga naituturo. Yes, good point from Mr. Paul Casalme. I think we should start from values re-education. And parents should reinforce values in their home as well. We cannot let social media do their responsibility. So, as molder of the character of their kids. Actually, pandemic kind of brought this upon us. We were kind of forced, di ba, na to enter in, the children actually were forced to enter into the internet quite early on. So, kailangan, as RBJ has been repeatedly saying, it takes a village, no? Not just to improve policies and, to move certain things forward, but most especially to raise children, 'di ba? So, kailangan lahat ay maging involved. So, that was one hell of a discussion. I think we're like 5 minutes over time. So maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. But before we go, I would like to introduce the program director of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, Philippines, Miss Yan Aranya, program manager program manager of FNF Philippines. Hello, Yan. She's going to give her closing remarks this evening.
Thank you, Attorney Carrie. Maraming salamat po. It was indeed a rich discussion, ano po. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the people who made this event a success. To Honorable Congressman Edsel Lagman for his keynote address and also highlighting very important points. To our esteemed panelists, Carlos Villarao, Benja Basas, and RBJ Gatchalian, for sharing their important and impactful insights during the panel discussion. And of course, to Attorney Carrie and also the rest of the Center for Liberalism and Democracy team. You all did an amazing job in organizing this event. Education, democracy are of utmost significance in determining how countries will develop in the future. Democracy offers fertile ground for the growth and improvement of education, while education serves as the cornerstone of a thriving and efficient democracy. Highlighting what Honorable Ed Seligman mentioned earlier, citizens who receive education are better equipped in exercising their rights responsibly, taking an active part in civil society in a participatory way, and improve the community. And also in our country, especially. This is why effectively investing in education is very important, which was emphasized during the discussion. Friedrich Naumann Foundation advocates and promotes democracy, human rights, and education to thrive, especially here in the Philippines. And this kind of activity is important in elevating awareness and influencing actions, especially at this time. And lastly, I'd like to thank all the attendees for tonight's discussion across all of the platforms of CLD. May this rich discussion drive your awareness and passion to elevate the level of education and democracy in our country. On behalf of Friedrich Naumann Foundation, maraming salamat po at mabuhay.
Maraming salamat, Miss Yan. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikilahok ngayong gabi. It was indeed a very spirited and insightful discussion. Sana po sa susunod na mga activities ng CLD at ng FNF ay magkita-kita po tayong muli. Humihirit po si Sir Benjo kanina ng sana part 2. We're looking forward to that. Pag-usapan po natin. And we can have another one soon. So again, maraming salamat po sa Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, Philippines. Thank you to Kong Edsel Lagman and to our panelists, Buang Valarao, Sir Benjo Basas, and RBJ Gatchalian. Maraming salamat po at magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.